Me? All right.
So, welcome everyone. Today we've got an amazing masterclass with the phenomenal Kerrie Nobes on building psychologically safe work environments. And before we start, as always, we love to do an acknowledgement of country. I live in Bulu, so I'm here saying good morning to a lot of people who are telling me good afternoon. And I live in the Whadjuk land of the Noongar Nation. So I just want to pay my respects to all of our Indigenous elders, past, present, and the amazing elders that are emerging today. So I am Leanne Jeffrey, and I'm the business coordinator for Business Women Australia. Most of us have come on today who are all actively now part of our amazing collective, and we all work together to co-create your success, which is a really beautiful way to work, I think. You know, we all get to be champions of one another. And today we've got the amazing Kerrie stepping up to share her knowledge. And we have a massive collective around Australia today. And we're always working to better ourselves. So we do want and thrive and need an inclusive and diverse collaboration of women in Australia. And of course, you know, we all have these amazing shared values that brings us together. I work with a lot of the members. I'm always going to tell you there's massive member benefits. A lot of you are new and you actually don't understand the benefits that you are entitled to and that we do want you to make use of. And for our classics, it's 2 check-in planning sessions. And for our premiums, we've got 4 strategy sessions. And for everyone, sometimes if you just need a sounding board, book in with me. Because it's great, you know, we get so focused and have this tunnel vision when we're looking through work that sometimes we just need to talk about it out loud. Please always connect to me. We're here. And, you know, we want to hear from our members as well. And for those who aren't, this needs to actually be updated. We've just had a price increase. So those who have jumped in January, congratulations. Okay. And we do have a few events coming up. Tracy's on the call. She's a great change manager, and we're having a podcast about choosing change in your life. And the best person to talk about it is Tracy, as she has just gone from a massive change of being 20 years with Sea Change Consulting to being her own brand, and what a brand it is. So I'm really looking forward to having a chat with her. We've got a few people in Perth. If you're in Perth, come and join me. We've got Joanne Bradbury's 3 Drops Wine, and we're having a summer long table dinner at the Cabin Small Bar. Melbourne, you'll see beautiful Kerrie again. Lynn will be there as well with Catherine, Conversations, Connections. Is it Rob Dolan Whites? So they will be there. And March, Sydney's got quite a few events coming up, so keep a look on the calendar. Actually, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney have got quite a few events coming up in person. Tracy, we need to get Brisbane. But Sydney, Empowering Innovation, Insights with Venture Capitalists and Business Leaders with Joe Robin from Black Nova. And back in Perth again, another Chats, Cheese and Wine. We're going to be navigating transitions in a complex world with the gorgeous Vita Colino. Join us, follow us. If you listen to podcasts, connect to us, Apple, Spotify, or good podcasting stations. Yeah. And about this recording. So obviously we have gone live. We are recording. We will have breakout rooms, and the discussions in these breakout rooms will not be recorded. So we want you to bring your authentic self. We want you to connect, and we want you to know that anything that you share will not be discussed outside of this. Okay. And I'm going to be quiet because Kerrie's told me very emphatically that once I've welcomed everyone, she's got full reins. So I'm very happy to hand you over to the beautiful and amazing Kerrie Nobes.
Thank you. Very kind indeed. So I'm really excited you've joined me. And because it's a masterclass, I think it's really important for us to put it out there that, yes, I go down rabbit holes and I start reading on these things, and then I take a left and then a right. And so then I really love to gather all the information and synthesize it. So there's so much on this topic. And what we're going to do, and we'll do that in a moment, is get you into a breakout room so you can start thinking about what is it that you really want from today, because the topic is out here. It's a masterclass, and I'm really interested in giving and having you share your experience in the areas that we want to know about as a group that are on this call for us today. So let me just introduce myself. There we go. So here we are, building psychological safety, passion of mine. Everything I do is really focused on that communication, on helping people be their best and helping people change circumstance. And I know, we've got the lovely Tracy here who is all about change and how that happens. So you'll have lots to add. I know, Tracy, and I'm sure everybody has experience that they can bring into this discussion. Who am I? Just a quick visual to give that to you. I like a bit of cannelloni jokes. I like a drive out to the wineries on a Sunday. I've got my little pooch there. I'm a puzzle girl and a bit of a creative. And you can see there, I lived in the States for a while, which was quite an interesting experience. So we could talk about that offline. And they're my two beautiful children. So then how do I come to be doing this with us today? My area, as I said, is really that coaching of people. It's about understanding who we are and how we can turn up and be our authentic selves, and our leadership and that emotional intelligence. So as you can see, I do go down rabbit holes. So here we go. This is our definition of psychological safety. Now, I'm sure that everybody has understanding of where this is, but for me, it's really about creating a fair playing field so that everybody in our organization can get off the bench and get in and play the game. Nobody wants to be benched. So it's allowing them to share views and for those to be considered. One of the things that I always find is that people, there's two thoughts along with psychological safety. So it'll be interesting as we go through to see what your experience is. But it's about making sure that when people offer experience and ideas, or they can see risk, that they can do that without fear that it's going to be a hindrance to them, that it's going to change the way somebody views them, that they're going to look as negative, or they're going to be given, the rubbish assignments rather than the great projects. It's about being safe to bring ourselves and really give to organizations and get that sense of satisfaction in what we do. So, as I said, this is what I want from you. I am going to pop you into a breakout room, and we'll just have two because we're a smallish group and we hope that some of the others manage to jump in. But what I really want you to think about is, what is it that you want to walk away with out of today's discussion? Are there questions that you have? I had one question that was offered up earlier before we came in, which was, how do we work with this with hybrid and remote communities? So we'll have a little of an exploration of that as we go through, but have a conversation. Share what your experience is. And I really encourage you not to spend the time in, who are you and what do you do, which is very much a BWA thing, but let's do that offline and really get the most out of our conversation here today. What questions do you have? What is it you want from today? I've got a whole lot of strategies and things here, but I want to just go to the areas that you really want to look at. So I'll jump out of there and we'll get some breakout rooms organized. So I'm just going to pop you into 2 rooms. And then when we come back, we will do a quick little introduction of self as well and what it is that you want. So really just get those creative juices going, girls, and come back and we'll go from there. All right, rooms are open. 10 minutes. What is it we want? What's our experience with psychological safety, and how can we make this really valuable time for you over the next 90 minutes?
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, thanks, Leanne. Back to recording. We keep forgetting that. What we'll do is just have you introduce yourself, and then if you can share what it is you would really like to get out from today, and that will just help us set our path to what will be most valuable for those that are with us today. Can I start with you, Michelle?
Yes, I think. So I'm not quite sure what I want to get out of today. I have quite a specific issue probably around my role as counsellor, and so it's not your normal workplace situation, and so then you can't go down the same paths that you might do because everyone's they're publicly or politically elected, depending on. So it's not like you can sort of do some of the more employment-based processes and things like that. So I'm interested to hear what others are doing, but I work in a space where I was just saying I'm the single female counsellor in my town, the first in 10 years.
Oh, well done.
Well, yes, maybe. But and we're coming up to another election. So my choice is whether I am able to make a change or create enough change to enable me to run again, or whether I just step away and go, that was too hard.
Okay. Oh, well, let's hope you get you some good tips on how to engage others and get that business happening. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Tracy.
Hello, Michelle. Actually, I've met Michelle before, so it's nice.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you. Actually,
nice to see you here. Nice to see you here. Well, I had a great chat to the 2 ladies, but they all talk about themselves. I've like Kerrie, I do work in organisations with helping make change happen, but I've spent a bit of time in the safe space and the psychological safety space. Probably not as much as you, Kerrie, but so what
I think you've got a bit to add, Tracy.
I like to learn how other people approach this, and I guess I'm a pretty practical person, and I think listening to the 2 ladies that were in my group, it's the how. How do we do this? How do we actually do it in your workplace or as a counsellor, Michelle? I know that's a challenge. What are some of the tips and tools that people use to create that safety? And I'm always open to listening how other people do it. So that's why I'm here, Kerrie. And I wanted to listen to all your wisdom. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tracy. Erin.
Howdy. In this context, I'm wearing the hat of working with a WA university around a change initiative. So my background is varied, but cut my teeth in the communications industry. What I'm really interested in is, because what we're working on is effectively a nudge style change that won't result in any job losses. But the minute that you start engaging with stakeholders, obviously then things happen. So I'm really interested in so my key question is what are the dumb things, what are the dumb things that you see leaders do that just absolutely are, shut down, that need for psychological safety. And I think to kind of echo what Tracy said as well, is just really practical tips. So what are those, really, what are those key takeaways? To summarize it really nicely, would be beautiful.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Mary.
Hi, I work in aged care. I oversee currently 4 homes, and we're looking to get a lot bigger. Aged care is going through significant reform. I'm the head of governance and quality, and for me, a lot of it is for aged care, it's a lot of new terminologies. This topic is definitely on the aged care agenda. Not only that, I was just saying that we're facilitating advisory boards, it's working with key stakeholders, doctors, and all those challenges that we face. And, it's about me being confident in myself and building up the skills, and I'm confident with those skills, as well as what Tracy has said. I really want just practical, non-nonsense, just let's get into it, let's facilitate it, work practically to get it across, because I've got big workforce. The message has to be, and the process needs to be simple. And for me to do that, I need to really be confident and understand the intent behind all of this. What is the real intent and how to take it and drive it, the change. So it's all about that process for me.
Fabulous. Thanks, Mary. Alex. Alex, can you unmute?
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's unmuted now.
That's all right. Well done.
It was like not clicking. Anyway, hi, I'm Alex. I'm a university lecturer, and I work a lot with students and academics. So I don't really know much about this space at all, and I basically just want to know, as the others have said, some really practical tips on how to create a safe space for people to speak. So, for example, in my classes, there are always the shy students and always the ones who don't want to have a go at giving the answer. So I want to find, I guess, tips on how to create that space so that the shy, quiet student will actually have that go to giving an answer and not feel the pressure of getting it right, and it doesn't matter if they get it wrong because it is a learning space.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alex. So, Alex, I do a lot with TAFE, with educators, and psychological safety is part of what I teach them. So I can certainly give you some tips, and we can catch up at another point if you want to go for a deeper dive. And Mary, in terms of health, that's very much my space also. I was a registered nurse back in the day, and have got a lot of experience with that nursing and all the different support staffs you have coming in.
Yeah.
Kate, can we hear from you before we jump in and get some of these questions answered?
Yes, hello. Can I just have a quick hello to Alexandra, because we actually know each other through RAC, the Royal Australian Chemical Institute. So,
nice.
I'm chair of the Women in Chemistry group for the Royal Australian Chemical Institute for WA.
Yeah. For me, my business has a lot of, not nearly as many men as Michelle is dealing with, but mostly men. So, and I find in a group sense, I think we have really good psychological safety. What I want that to when we do our outcome conversations, so that's usually one-on-one, I want it to extend to that, and I want people to be really authentic and honest. So I find that they usually are when it's something good, but of course when it's a difficult conversation, not so much. And just maybe some tips around what we can do to help them. Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we can cover off those things. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that, because I think it really is important when we're giving our time that we're going where you need to know things, rather than me just taking you on my path. So let's kick in there then. What makes an unsafe community? What makes an unsafe space? So let me just, I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I want to get to the practical. So I'm just going to give you an overview. What do we see when people are in an unsafe space? And weirdly enough, one of the things that stands out and that should be top of your list is silence. If you are not hearing from people what their challenges are, or what problems they're facing, or how they are feeling, whether that be I'm excited or whether that be I'm frustrated, if we're not hearing that, there's a good chance that those people aren't in a space where they can be authentic. Okay, so that's the first thing. So what happens when somebody's in a safe space is they feel either excluded or inferior, or Alex, in classes, I'm a little scared to speak in case somebody else ridicules me because I might have it wrong. And it's a fear of making mistakes and the fear of retribution. So people don't ask questions. They don't look for problem solving in collaboration. If somebody's unsafe, what happens is we get hijacked. So our brain goes to the emotional part and we lose the ability to be logical. That's what's happening. We go into survival. And what we are trying to do is just go under the radar and not be seen. And then I can just survive and do what I need to do. If people are speaking over each other, if we as an organization don't give people time to reflect or contribute in a meaningful way, we're not creating that safe environment. Fear of consequence, and often that need to jump in and fix what's going on rather than giving somebody an opportunity to be involved and help them figure out what that problem is, and doing more of a coaching approach so people get the confidence. That's how we build people's confidence and their ability to have self-esteem and to be able to speak up, is by making sure that we listen. We ask questions, and more importantly, we listen to what they have to say. There's a lot of talk about that, in this space, we have transactions rather than interactions. It's about, I've got to get this job done. This is what you're going to do. And it's not about how do we get there, because all of us go about things in a different fashion. So we can set goals together as leaders, but everybody will have their own way to get there. And what we want to do is use that. If we use the strengths of people, then we start building that psychologically safe space, because they get energized and they get satisfaction and they still get results, which is what it's all about. So silence, if you're not hearing something, think about, all right, something's amiss here, because people who are being authentic will give the good and the bad. Okay, that's one of your best hints. So then what do we see if we've got a safe space? What have you seen when you see a safe space? What do you reckon happens? Anyone want to jump in?
I will jump in. I think people, when it's a shared space, people are enthusiastic and excited and wanting to speak, and you do need to be careful that everybody has a chance to speak.
Yeah, some great hints there. That
I think
people are engaged. Yeah, they're excited, Kate. They want to put in, they want to jump in there. And if we're safe, we can be creative, right? We can think left to center and go, all right, I'm going to throw this in the mix. And people are going to look at it for what it's worth. It's not to say that we're going to take everybody's opinion or idea and run with it, but we're going to put it in there. And there's so much work out there in that whole diversity and inclusive, to make sure that we do bring in all the wisdom in the room we're in or the business we're in. Because yes, we hire people for their CVs and their resumes, but we hire them for their experience. And this people side of what drives motivation and that intrinsic motivation, we get that from getting to know who our people are. That's the way that works. So we need to know what they do so that we can help them figure those strengths and move forward with strengths, and to voice what they can do. And that way, when we're looking for volunteers, I say, you know what? I've worked in Scouts and I've had really good experience with this, which you would have no idea about if you didn't. It's not true. I've just made it up. But but you know what I mean? It's our experience outside of work comes into work. And we used to say, leave yourself at home and come to work. That's not how we work. In this psychologically safe space, we want people to bring all of themselves and feel that they can share what is of value to the group that is relevant.
Okay. Kerrie, can I add something there with just the signs and thanks, Kate. What you said was about how people feel. I think what I'll go the other way, and what I see leaders do in a safe environment is that it's all in how they respond and listen to when someone says something. It's, for example, they don't go, yeah, but, or they don't go, oh, look, no, that won't, no. You know, so it's all in the response of how the leader actually encourages that, but how they actually just respond when people say something. And because if leaders jump on someone when they've said something, they are very unlikely to say anything again.
Speak again.
Yeah. So
really good point.
It's the way that the leader sets the tone. So it's about how they respond to and also open things up for listening, and not just to be a token. Yes. I actually do want to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah. And to clarify what they've heard, to build on what Tracy said, because often people offer something and people just run with it without going, well, what does that mean? Or what is the practicality of that? How are we going to apply it? What questions do we have? So it becomes a conversation. It's not just you ask a question and somebody offers something and we're already going where we're going anyway, because there is nothing more demotivating than to feel like it's been a token conversation.
Yeah, so, and I think that the other thing you can add to that is if you've seen people, Alexandra was talking about this, about students who won't say anything, is if you see certain students and you think, I think they're edging to say something, invite them to say something. So I haven't heard from you, Kerrie. Is there anything you'd like to offer? And Kerrie can go, no, I don't, or thank you, yes. You know, but sometimes people aren't game to offer, or if the environment hasn't been created for them to offer. But yeah, inviting people, that's a safe place to speak.
Yeah, it truly is. And it's about setting our expectations of what our communication looks. So we're going to look at those steps from Amy Edmondson. A lot of the work in this space comes from Amy and a couple of other people who've really put a lot of research in. But it is very much about that, of inviting people and framing ourselves so that we get we won't go into studies. All right. So this is always interesting me. This historic, when people don't want to look ignorant, they don't ask questions. I don't want to look incompetent, then I'm not going to admit that I made a mistake. And if I don't want to be seen as negative, then I stay quiet, because I don't want to say, oh, I see a problem here, because some people then go, oh my God, you're such a down, Debbie Downer, right? And they ridicule people and just make them feel insignificant. So what our role is to shift paradigms. And these are the paradigms. So what's been in the past, and we know that the legalities are changing with this as well, but what we used to do is somebody would ask us something as a leader, and we try and fix it. And we go, yep, right, you do this. And we didn't actually use any curiosity. So bringing questions and then listening and helping them, coaching them through that rather than giving them. So equipping people to move forward and to contribute, which is what all of us need to contribute to what's going on. There was also this really result focus. It's all about the end point. And to get people excited and engaged and being creative, we need to know that it's about where we're going, and it's the journey, and it's about being able to take risks, calculated risks, but risks nonetheless, and know that we're going to be supported if it goes bad. If it goes a little astray, that we're going to go, oh, and I give it, I had many years ago, I was in sales. I started life as a nurse, then I went into pharmaceutical sales. And I had a theatre night with 150 of my key doctor clients. I went to a premiere. The first 5 minutes of that movie, which I had no idea because it had never been shown, was highly illicit sexual acts. And you could imagine, as a young 20-year-old, I was trying to hide under my chair. I didn't want to go out at the mid part. I was mortified. But then when I went to and had to tell my boss, oh gosh, Norm, I stuffed up, and I stuffed up big for myself and another girl. And he went, well, what are you going to do to fix it? What do you reckon? What's the next step? And it wasn't about blame. It wasn't about, that was stupid, Kerrie. What were you thinking? It was about, all right, how do we move forward? And that's what psychologically safe spaces do. We're thinking forward. We're not stuck. We're not blaming. We're moving forward. So again, that monitor and evaluate. What we want is to empower people to make change, to try new things, and to be okay with it. Rewarding targets. I've seen, and this is one example of the what not to do. I think, Kate, you said, what do we, somebody was like, what do we not do? I've had a senior director leader who their team took 6 years to get a product listed on the PBS here in this country. And she called a virtual meeting to supposedly celebrate it. She got in and she said, well, that was good, people. All right, so our next project is. And so there was no celebration and no reflection on how did we get there? What are the lessons learned? Congratulations, just celebrate. She moved on in 5 minutes. And I was listening to this conversation and I was just blown away. So we don't want to tell people. What we want to do is get buy-in. We want our people to share what they see. And I'm thinking about that silence. If somebody's silent, they're not sharing if they can think of things. If they're in an unsafe space, they're not being able to think clearly anyway. But should they see a better way forward, or should they see a risk, they're not going to share that with us either. All right? They just go, they're not going to listen to me. And so for businesses, it is such a high risk thing not to engage your people, not to have them feel that they can contribute. So how can we make the shift? How can we build this space? Let's have a look at a couple of things that might help us. Has anyone seen the SCARF model before or worked with David Rock's work? No. All right. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I tell you, if you want a rabbit hole, this is one worth going down. So what David SCARF did, he was looking at what do people need to be valued, to feel psychologically safe. So what he says is that we need status. Okay, so status is how do we measure up amongst others in the team, amongst other people. So it can be that, oh, somebody else gets more opportunities than I get, then I see my status as low, and it affects my self-esteem and my confidence and my safety. That's status. Certainty is about what's coming to the best of our ability. Now, in business, we cannot be 100% transparent. Oh, we've got someone in the waiting room, Leanne. We can't be 100% sure in anything, but it's about making sure people know what's expected of them, what our expectations are, what their responsibilities are, and that we make sure that they've got what they need to be able to do that, and we give them as safe a space and certainty as we can. The third one is their autonomy. None of us want to be micromanaged. And when we're in a psychologically unsafe space, that's what's often happening. What are you doing now? Casey, what are you doing over there? Where are you at? And all of that comes in and makes us feel like we're not being trusted and that we're not performing. And that really creates that sense of overwhelm and being unsafe. Relatedness is how we have those relationships, and it's bias. Things like, what are the biases that we carry? Who works with who ignores somebody else? All that relationship building and creating a space where we feel valued in our relationships with others. And then fairness. Do I get the same opportunity as my buddy here? Or have they got a really good relationship with that manager? And then so they get more opportunities. And people feel things and don't speak about it if they're in that safe. So we need to think about that in terms of ourselves. And it's a good one for teams to think about, because we will all have our own variation of that, of what is more important to us than other things. Some people, it's the status. Other people, it will be they need the relationships. But it's a good exercise to have a talk through that and figure out who needs what, because then we're getting to know people and what they need from us. All right. His work shows, and you've got the points there, people avoid pain. So if I'm in survival mode, I am not going to be courageous and put myself out there. It's too much for most people. And rather than going, well, if I do that, I might get a reward, we tend to go, I'm not going to do that because it's going to cause me pain more than it's going to give me reward. The other thing that's really important here is that perceived threats, our body reacts exactly the same to, if my brain tells me I'm in a fearful place, I'm going to have a fearful reaction. Even if somebody else looks at it and goes, well, I don't even know what the problem is there. There's a tiger, or I'm not sure that I can speak without losing my job or losing my status, or all of those things make people feel. Talked about the hijack. We want people to be able to get into that logical space, and that space where we can innovate and create and step outside and look for better ways to do things and be engaged. And that's the way we go through. So this SCARF model, friend or foe. And if we can think about what people need from us, we can create outcomes as we see they're needed. What do you reckon of that? There's a lot of work in it, and I really do encourage you to have a look at where that goes, because I found it totally mind-blowing in just how, if I stop and think about it, I can see where my angst comes from. And I can also see what are some of the ways that I can act for myself, because we all have responsibility for self, but also if I'm looking and leading somebody else, what can I do to help them get where they need to be and what they need from this workplace that we're working in. Questions on that, or comments? All good? All right. So the other part of the equation that really comes into us when we're looking at creating safe environments, the way we can help our business do that is by increasing the emotional intelligence across the board. So emotional intelligence, pretty buzzword out there. You're hearing a lot of that too, Tracy, and others who work. Yeah, it's being spoken a lot. In the last little while, I've done a couple of accreditations there with the Roche Martin Emotional Capital Report and this Genos. And it's really fascinating to bring it down, because we've got Dan Goleman's work of self-awareness and awareness of others and managing ourselves and managing others. These programs give you an opportunity to take surveys and to really understand what your strengths are and what are the areas that you can expand. And for your leaders, because we know that a lot of the emotional space, if our leaders are struggling, then their shadow creates angst for everybody else. And we talk about, look after yourself first. And emotional intelligence is a really nice way to understand what it is that you need to look after you. So you can see there in this one, there are 6 things. And I really want to give you an opportunity, whether you want to take a photo of that or just note the self-awareness, awareness of others, being authentic, emotional reasoning, where we're using both logic, so we can actually access that cortex, the self-management, so we get that consistency and inspiring performance. These are the skills that help us lead to safe environments. So I'm going to pop you back into some breakout rooms so you can have a chat about how you see this and what are the things you can do to hone in on this and create a space where people in your teams or for yourself can start building some of these skills. Questions before I put you into a breakout room? No. All right. Let me stop that. Let's get some rooms. I'm recreating so you get to work with somebody else new. Let's just go 5 minutes to just have a start of a conversation. This is something that you could spend a day, 2, 3, 4, but it's just a start to get a little idea of what are each of these things mean and how does it tie in, and then we'll move on to some of the other practical response. We've got the rest of you back. Got you back from your rooms. Welcome to Karen and Julie, who were both just joined us. What was some of the gist of that conversation? How does our emotional intelligence fit in with creating a psychologically safe environment? And what are some of the things we can do to pick that up? Oh, Kate, you're speaking, but on mute. There we go.
Well, I was laughing because in the session that we just had, I basically was talking, and then all of a sudden we had to come back into our this.
So you didn't get your
like, hang on, nobody else has spoken. My apologies, but they were they did ask me questions. One of the things that we do in our organisation is we have a check-in before we start any sort of meeting, whether that's just 2 people or more. And I can definitely see this increased emotional intelligence, these main headings, being a really good way of me bringing in topics to our check-ins, which will help people open up a bit more.
Yeah, beautiful. Start conversations.
Yes.
That's what it's all about, having authentic conversation. Fantastic. Who else got something to add?
Just on that point, I think as well, making it sometimes, if possible, outside of the office is a huge way of enabling a more open conversation. So, quite often when you're very busy, you might think you might be emotionally intelligent yourself, engage that someone's not in the right headspace and ask them how they're going. But it comes across as being just an everyday kind of question, like, how are you? Rather than specifically setting aside some time to check.
Yeah. So that's very much what we were saying earlier, Julie, is that need to, when we ask a question, actually listen and try and understand what somebody's telling us, and reading as much as we can from what they're not saying, because most of our communication is nonverbal, right? So it's a lot of what's not being said, but is being shown by people's body language. So we need to look at, in terms of that emotional intelligence, some of the things that we get to do to learn more about ourselves. We ask for feedback. And when we get feedback, we treat it as the gift it is, because particularly if it's got something in there that we might feel a little uncomfortable with, and let's face it, we need to be uncomfortable if we're growing, or else it's just all stagnant. We need to make sure we thank people for making the effort, even if we don't like what's being said, but we have to stop and try it on. Again, feedback, whole new fish, but looking for feedback and finding our blind spots is very much what self-awareness is, because we all have them. And it's really valuable when we've got that relationship with people where they can give us authentically what we do well, along with some of the impact we might be having on people that we may not be aware of. So real conversation. That brings me to Jane Dutton, is a professor at Michigan State, and she does high quality connections. And she says that for real conversation, you have 4 pathways. One is respectfully and mutually regard between the two people conversing. One is task enabling in a workplace, so that you are doing what you can do to help people do what they do. So it's not about what I think I can offer you, Tracy, to get your job done. It's about me saying, what do you need from me? And leaving assumptions out. And if we see somebody in flow, not interrupt and go, oh, I've got 10 minutes, I can help you. And it's about really looking at what is going to help that person get what they need to get done. The other path is trust, which we know is something that we need to create that safe space. And then we've got fun. Now, Amy Edmondson says that the best way you can tell if you're in a safe space if there's some chatter and some laughter, because people who are unsafe will not be engaged and having fun. So if you've got fun, then you know, all right, we're on the right track. And if we're just all about work and there is none of that intercommunicative, you know, that interpersonal conversation, then we want to make time for that, for people to get to know each other and to reflect what's working for us and what's not, and having conversations that are not particularly project-based or task-based. So that's some of the things we can do. For you, Alex, you know, when you've got people who are quiet and you're trying to bring them out, as Tracy said, it's that invite, but it's also giving people time, because some of us, when we look at behavioral models, some of us are thinkers and reflectors, and some of us are doers. And so for those that are thinkers, we need to allow them to have time to work through what it is they want to contribute. If we ask somebody and say, give it to me now, and pressure them, half of the behavioral models, you know, people are going to go, whoa, hang on a minute. I'm not ready to speak until I've thought it through. So in workplaces, it's about giving agendas if you're having meetings so they can come prepared with their thoughts. In classrooms, it's about giving some structure of where we're going and where we've been. And then when we ask people for input, that we give them time to put it together. Because often what happens, we ask a question and then they're not giving it to us. So we go, all right, so we ask a few more questions and start piling them up, or we just move on because we don't think they've got anything to share. And the reality is that they're actually thinking about how they can respond effectively. And if we cut that off, then we're really making them feel undervalued. Setting the expectation. Everybody has something of value, and that's the reality, because we all have different life experience. All right. So
can I start question?
Yeah.
I just your brief talk there about agendas. We have found the best move that we have done in our little organisation around having an agenda is the first thing on the agenda is time to read it at the meeting, because people don't make time to read it. So we actually give them time to read it, write down some notes. If, of course, somebody needs to prepare something really huge, obviously that's different. But just having time to read the agenda and put down some notes has really helped us. Yeah.
Yeah. And reflection is so important. And it's important in all of your areas, because if we don't stop to go, what's working for me and what's not, then we are on a treadmill and we are just go, do. And we're not even sure that we're all heading in the same direction. We're not sure if it's the same. The goalposts are moving. We're in a really fast-paced world. Those goalposts move, and we need to check, and we need to make sure that everyone knows what the priorities are and where we're all heading. And we need people to reflect on that, what's working. And those doing are those that are going to give us the best intel, right? Because they're doing it. They're working with the process. They're working with the way it either is helping or whether it's hindering. And they can give you that. I can't tell you how many teams I've worked with where people said, I tried to tell them. I could have told them, I tried to tell them, they didn't listen to me. And then they hang up their boots and they go. I worked with a group of engineers and they were like, well, we've done 5 surveys on what do we need. We've given them feedback and no one has ever come back to us to say what they're going to do with it. And then they said, and now they've got the audacity to ask us how we can fix it. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. But isn't that a good thing that they're asking your opinion now? Maybe this is the start of change. And it took a really big mind shift to go from they don't want mine to how dare they ask me to fix it, because I've tried to tell them for so long. And where people are in that, particularly in engineering and those technical fields, people are very proud of the knowledge they have and what they've got to offer. And if you don't give them the opportunity to share that and to input, they are going to get stubborn as hell. They're going to dig those heels in and they're going to go in the end. So any other things you'd like to jump in there? And then I really want to give you some of these ideas on how do we go about it in more depth. So 3 things. I always work with support, challenge, and champion. That's the way my brain works. How do I set up that trusting relationship? How do I know people, allow people to be authentic, to contribute, to really get that buy-in? How does all of that work? For Amy Edmondson, she talks about framing. And when she's talking, a frame is basically a set of beliefs and assumptions for us. So framing is what us as leaders need to do to set the tone, to set people up to be open. And it's really about how we do that. It's about being vulnerable. It's about saying, you know what? I don't have all the answers, but I think when we all sit down to do this together, we can come up with a game plan that's going to get us there. And it's using inclusive language. We're in it. Let's go. And we go. So many years ago when I was in sales, I used to go out as a field manager, and I would go out with my reps once every 3 weeks. Then they took me from that team and they plucked us into a new team, and I was going to have to go out with the rep every week. That's somebody sitting in your office, literally in the car, almost sitting on your knee 1 day a week. And my reps went, holy cow, this sucks. And there was just misery. And my inner speak was, holy cow, this sucks. How am I going to make that work? And what we did was then actually move to the challenge. All right, this is a challenge we're in. We can fix it. We can make this work for us. How can we do that? So we're inviting people to share how they see we can move forward. And for that rep thing, it ended up that I could sit there and I could type up their notes while we were driving from A to B, or I could share what the experience was from others to help them get to their targets. But it was all from them being in it with me as their leader to figure out the best way forward. And we can only challenge and successfully invite input if we put the work into the support, framing it and giving those expectations and building trust. That's what it all comes down to. Then my last step is champion. For Amy, it's about responding appropriately. And so, what happens here is we're in it together. Fantastic. We've made progress. It's looking at what those small steps are as we move forward. We know we want to get to a long end goal for many projects, but we need milestones. So the milestones give us an opportunity as leaders to check in on how things are going. And if they're set, then it's not like we're micromanaging. We're just checking in to see where everyone's at. Then we're comfortable that we know that things are moving along, or that they're not and there's a problem, and we pick it up without waiting until down the track. So we need to build those supports. We need to open communication. Psychologically unsafe environments are about communication shutdown. It's essentially people going, I'm not working with you. I'm not going to give my all to go where you go. But if we frame it that we're in this together, and this is a challenge, and there are going to be things that we want to do, but I want to know what's working for you and what's not. What is it that I can do to help you move forward? So just, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Here's a bit of an overview of some of the things that we do in building that. We talked about high quality interactions. We talked about curiosity, not blame. That's huge. So not who did this. It was like, okay, what led us to this? And how can we move forward so that people are not getting defensive and needing to protect themselves? What they are doing is going, you know what, I stuffed up, just as I did to Norm. Norm, I don't know what to do now. I've just upset my full key client list. What do I do with that? And he coached me through it. And it wasn't blame. It was, all right, what can we do? And how do we do it together? Mistakes are part of innovation. So that's part of that expectation in learning as well as in business. How do we create that space that mistakes will be made? Amy Edmondson has just put out a new book, The Right Kind of Mistakes. And it's all about the learning that comes with mistakes and us coming out of comfort zones where lots of our workforce are in comfort, just doing what they have to do, just plodding it through. And, some of them doing it well, but they're not stretching and they're not looking for better ways. And that's what we need, that safe space to create and allow them to do that. I'm happy to send some slides, so don't, if you're feeling. Coaching, celebrating, accountability. Some people go, oh, psychologically safe, we're just being nice to people. We're not, we need accountability. It is about creating a space where people are empowered to say, you know what, that's mine. I want to pick it up and I want to run with it. So accountability actually goes up, as does productivity. All right. Anything anyone wants to add in there that I haven't covered that might be a nice practical tip for somebody else? And then we'll just have a quick look at how do we measure what's going on.
Not a practical tip. So as soon as you mention a book, I'm going to see if I can get it. Is it The Right Kind of Wrong by Amy Edmondson?
Yes.
Why learning style can teach us to thrive.
But it's Amy Edmondson, and it is definitely a whole thing about how mistakes, you know, we don't want people just going and being willy-nilly, but it's about taking calculated risk, and that what we can learn from mistakes is how we move forward. So I'll look it up.
That's a great list that you've got there of practical things. Like if you start living half of those, it would create an environment of safety. Yeah, good list.
Change. Yeah, and it's just about, you know, stopping to say, well, what's that person got to offer me, to offer the team, to offer all of us, and about creating a village in your workplace. Because a village is a whole lot of people doing different things. You've got the smithy, you've got the baker, but everyone's got their role, but everybody is involved with everybody else, and encouraging and moving people forward. This is how we look at it, to go, how do I know if I'm in this space or not? It's curiosity, it's observation. What's not being said is so much more powerful than what is being said, because a lot of what does get said is the whinging and the gossip and the out of, you know, between two people. And depending on your behavioural preference, some people don't want to be miserable by themselves, so they actively recruit others to be miserable with them. And so they go, oh my God, that sucked in that. And they bring in and create this emotional roller coaster that others just come for a ride. Listening and being really clear to make sure that we clarify what our understanding is when people are speaking to us. Offering feedback. And, you know, if you don't have a feedback model, reach out, because we need to think about that in terms of how we do it, and that it's our impact, and we're talking behaviour and not people. It's the behaviour that we're looking to change, not the person. There's all sorts of surveys. There's actually just walking the floor and not being, you know, if you're a senior leader, come down and get on the floor and talk to those doing, and have just conversations. And what comes to me is that NASA. Who's ever read that thing with the NASA cleaner? Have you seen that? So there's a cleaner in NASA, and I'm not sure who it was, one of the big politicians came and said, oh, what do you do here? And he said, I'm helping put people on the moon as the cleaner. And you know, to me, that's just so heartwarming. And it's about having people know what the values are of the organisation, aligning and knowing what their part is in the big picture.
It was JFK, Kerrie. It was JFK.
It was JFK. I was going to say JFK. I was like, not too sure.
Sorry, I need to go. I've got another meeting. So thank you. I'll just
thanks for jumping in, Tracy.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
All right. There's also a PERMA survey. If you put that in, there is a free survey that people can take that gives them a look at their well-being. So have a look at that. PERMA, yeah, there's a whole lot of work there that can be helpful. And then from Amy Edmondson, we touched on it early in our thing. If all you're hearing is good news and progress and statements, but nobody asking for help or asking if they can do something differently, agreements, so we're complying and all is well, we want to go, what's going on here? There's opportunities to be had by having people happy to have, you know, really healthy debate and to offer up different views. That's how we can see it. And then just some questions for you to ask yourself or ask your teams. What can you do in all of the things we've talked about that will help somebody feel heard? Because that's what it's about. How do we make somebody feel valued? What can we do to get more buy-in? And thinking of the actions we can take that are going to give people that sense of value. And a lot of it is tied into emotional intelligence. And the big one, are you ready, or are your leaders ready to adapt and react productively if things go astray? Because there's a leadership shadow. And if something goes astray and their response, as Tracy beautifully said early, if their response is, well, what? Why is that? What? Then we've got people who are just in defensive survival mode. And we're not thinking, how do we move forward? What's the learning that should have come from this? So the other big question, what don't we talk about that we should? And you can go through the business to different areas of the business depending on what your role is or who you know in the business, and just ask that. And if there's if the psychological safety is low at this point, you may not get any feedback, and be ready for that. And that's okay. Simply by asking and giving them an opportunity to respond has people going, maybe they do care. Maybe they do want to know what I think, but it can take a little while if it's not something that's been part of an organisation or a classroom, Alex. It's about, hey, what's going on? What can I do better to help you do what you do better? And it's that vulnerability to hear and to act, but that is that self-awareness for us and our emotional, step forward. So that is pretty much what I wanted to cover off today. Just to let you know that if anybody wants to have a conversation about what's going in your workspace, always happy to have a chat to, that's what Business Women Australia is about, isn't it, Leanne? People helping people. So very happy to have a conversation. Really challenge you to think about what can you do to create this, because it comes down to it's everyone's responsibility and we can make change as individuals. And then I say thank you for taking time out of your day to join us today and partake in this conversation. And look for opportunities to build up your people and to create that space for both yourself, so you get fun and some enjoyment in what you do, and also those around you. So I'll jump out of there and just open up to questions. We've got two minutes before you probably all going to be somewhere else, but I'm very happy to stay put. And what questions do we have or comments? Michelle, did you find something valuable there that you can do in creating that space in council?
I'm not sure.
Not sure, going to have to think through that. But, okay. If you'd like to talk about specifics, then Leanne's just put my contacts in there. But as I say, very happy to talk about specifics. And I have worked with many a council, about 32 in Victoria, New South Wales. So have a little insight there.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say thank you everyone for coming, because if you want to ask questions, I want to do it outside of the recording, so that way you can, if you've got something a bit more pointed that you need to ask. So thank you everyone for joining, and I will be sending out this recording to everyone who's registered as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne.